A life without children is miserable, huh? My daughter is adorable and a genius. Cohen Kirby said with a grin on his face, causing my insides to boil with rage. It was like he had forgotten all about how he had treated me in the past, casually striking up this conversation and then saying this. I couldn't help but feel furious. However, I reminded myself of the situation I was in and managed to suppress my anger. Carefully maintaining a cheerful appearance, I decided to respond to Cohen. Even if he got mad, it wouldn't come close to what I had endured. I called my daughter, Sarah, who was a little distance away, and proudly said, "Well, let me introduce my daughter then." I probably had the smile I envisioned on my face. As I showed that to Cohen, I hugged Sarah, who had run over to me. Huh? Cohen looked at us with a dumbfounded expression, his mouth agape in surprise. He couldn't accept the reality of the woman he had always looked down upon. Jolie, who had been smirking by Cohen's side until then, seemed unable to hide her shock either. Ignoring them, I turned to talk to Sarah. My name is Kyrie Allen, a 51-year-old businesswoman. Whenever I mention that my daughter is 12 years old, people are usually surprised. Yes, I married late, but there's a story behind that. Actually, I'm divorced, and I didn't have any children from that marriage. I met my ex-husband, Cohen Kirby, in a blind date. A friend of mine, who was worried about my perpetual workaholism and unwillingness to get married, arranged a party for me. That's where Cohen took a liking to me and started pursuing me intensely. That said, I still had no intention of doing so at first, and I was still cowed by Cohen's favors. But he was so persistent that I eventually warmed up to the idea. As a result, Cohen and I started dating and soon got married. Once married, Cohen, who was very keen on having children, was serious about trying to conceive. However, being in my late 30s then, I felt an immense pressure. Whether it was due to that or not, we had trouble conceiving. Gradually, Cohen's attitude toward me cooled, eventually turning contemptuous. "What's up, infertile? Did you pick up the cleaning I asked about before?" He began referring to me as infertile and treating me like a servant. It was incredibly frustrating, and I desperately looked for a solution. I even went to the hospital, fearing the worst, but all the tests showed that I was perfectly healthy. In fact, the doctor even suggested that stress might be causing it, leaving me feeling utterly helpless and downhearted. I tried everything, watching my diet, taking supplements. Despite all efforts, I still couldn't get pregnant. Wondering if the problem might not be mine, I suggested to Cohen Kirby that he should get tested. "Hey, Cohen." I went to the doctor, and they found nothing wrong with me. "So, there might be a chance that, it could be you." "I think you should get tested," I said. Cohen's face turned red with anger immediately. "What? You're saying something's wrong with me? It's just you who can't get pregnant, don't you dare doubt me." "But there's nothing wrong with me, and I've been undergoing treatment for so long. If we can't have kids, it only makes sense that the issue might be with you." "That's impossible. I'm always fine, it has to be your fault, you're the only one to blame." Cohen stubbornly refused to consider my suggestion, insisting the problem was mine. At first, I argued back, but constant accusations wore me down. Finally, one of Cohen's remarks broke me completely. "What's the point of you being a woman if you can't even have kids?" He said it so dismissively that I was left speechless. Not because I agreed with him, but because I was shocked by the extent of his cruelty. I managed the house and supported Cohen, who also worked, as best as I could. Yet, just because I couldn't bear children, he dismissed me entirely. My spirit broken, I couldn't bring myself to ask him to get tested again. The thought of hearing those same harsh words made me too afraid to speak up. Sensing this, Cohen began ordering me around even more. I'm beat. I don't want the usual beer today, I'm craving that import one they sell at the liquor store downtown. Hey, you, since you're obviously not busy being infertile, go get it for me, now. He grew more audacious, treating me like a mere errand runner, laughing smugly. Any hint of resistance from me was met with even more vile words. I endured, day after day, without a thought of anything else. You'd think I'd have left him by now, right? But being a latecomer to marriage, I feared I'd never marry again if I left this one. Plus, I was somehow convinced that divorce was shameful, making it hard for me to take that step. So, time just passed, and I turned 38, when things suddenly took a dramatic turn. At that time, I was still working and enduring the infertility snoring that continued almost daily. Come on, you should know what I don't like by now. How can you expect me to eat such awful food? This is exactly why you're... That day, I couldn't hold back anymore and snapped back. What does food have to do with not having kids? I can't stand it anymore. Enough is enough, I exclaimed. Cohen leaped up, yelling at me fiercely. What's with that attitude? You can't even fulfill your role as a woman, and you dare complain to me when I get home from work. His unreasonable argument infuriated me. What role as a woman? If that means having kids, then you share the responsibility. I got tested, and there's nothing wrong with me. But you refuse to get tested, avoiding your responsibility. And yet, you have the nerve to complain only to me. It's just unfair. Cohen Kirby seemed a bit flustered by my rare rebuttal. But he quickly regained his composure and started hurling insults again. Why are you so stubborn? If it were her, she'd immediately reflect and apologize in this situation. His words stopped me in my tracks. Before I could even ask who her was, Cohen's expression changed to one of regret. And he quickly turned away, leaving the house without another word. He didn't come home that day, and I grew increasingly suspicious. From his tone, it was clear there was another woman in the picture. This meant he was cheating, which could potentially lead to a divorce. Not because I couldn't have children, but because of Cohen's infidelity. With this in mind, I acted quickly. I searched the internet for a nearby private investigator and hired them to look into Cohen's recent suspicious behavior and his mistress. A few weeks later, the investigator's report arrived. During this time, Cohen came home but avoided eye contact with me. He even stopped the verbal abuse. It was a surprising and somewhat more comfortable turn of events that made me regret not taking action sooner. I should have to do it. As these thoughts crossed my mind, I looked through the report. It confirmed Cohen's infidelity and included evidence and details about his mistress. Her name was Jolie. A 23-year-old, obviously much younger than both Cohen and me. They apparently started seeing each other right after I first suggested Cohen get tested. It meant this affair had been going on for years. Filled with sudden rage of finding it out, I decided to proceed with a divorce. While I prepared, Cohen was surprisingly calm. It was allowing me to make steady progress. Finally, I decided to confront Cohen about the divorce. Cohen, we need to talk. It's not about the test, it's something more important, I said as he just came home from work, making a displeased face. What now? I've got something to tell you too. Make it quick, he said, looking bored but somewhat attentive while fiddling with his phone. Before he could change his mind, I quickly presented him with the investigator's report. You're cheating, Cohen. I've had it thoroughly investigated, so there's no escaping this. Between the child issue and your infidelity, I can't take it anymore. I want a divorce, I said, thrusting the report and a partially filled-in divorce papers at him as a sign of my will. Instead of being flustered, Cohen smirked and took the divorce papers from my hand. Well, aren't you prepared? Such perfect timing almost makes me question your precognitive abilities, he remarked while operating his phone. Suddenly, with a click, the front door opened. Hello there, excuse my intrusion. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Jolie, the one who's gonna marry Cohen soon. The person who entered through the front door was the same one in the photos enclosed with the private investigator's report. Jolie, who looked even younger and cuter in person than in the photos, greeted me with a smirk. Today was actually the day I planned to introduce you to her. And to think you'd prepare the divorce papers for me, I didn't see that coming. If you had been this considerate all along, maybe I would have stuck around, but it's too late now. Cohen said half-jokingly, taking the divorce papers and walking into the living room. I was too shocked to grasp the situation and stood there, frozen. Soon, Cohen emerged from the living room with the divorce papers filled out. He handed them to me with a sly smile, saying, "This sure saves a lot of trouble. We're no longer husband and wife, so leave now. Jolie's pregnant, and I want her to have as little stress as possible." Faced with Jolie's and Cohen's malicious grins, I lost my composure. Snatching the divorce papers from Cohen, I ran to my room. I grabbed my already packed bags and left the house without a word. Fast forward 13 years. I had come to see how the project I was involved in had been completed. My job is as a professional consultant, and this time I was tasked with designing an apartment building that would be disaster-resistant and children-friendly. After Cohen introduced me to Jolie, I took refuge in a nearby business hotel. I waited until dawn to submit the divorce papers to the city hall, then moved from hotel to hotel. After that, I was finally settling into an apartment and focusing on my career. Divorcing Cohen seemed to lighten my spirits, and my work progressed smoothly. I got lucky with business opportunities and expanded my network. This revitalization led to my appointment as the project leader for this urban development, a long endeavor that had finally come to fruition. There was a small celebration at the site, crowded with many people. Then, a familiar, unpleasant voice caught my ear. "Hey, long time no see. Still all alone, huh? I came here to buy one of these condos for my family of 3. Not that it matters to you." I regretfully turned towards the voice. I saw Cohen, Jolie. And also there were their daughter, who must have been in Jolie's womb back then. "A life without children is miserable, huh? My daughter is adorable and a genius," Cohen said with a grin, causing my blood to boil. He had easily struck up a conversation as if he'd forgotten all the past mistreatment. I couldn't help but feel furious. However, I reminded myself of my current situation and managed to suppress my anger. Carefully maintaining a cheerful appearance, I decided to respond to Cohen. Even if he got mad, it wouldn't compare to what I had endured. I called my daughter, who was a little distance away, and proudly said, "Well, let me introduce my daughter then." I probably had the smile I envisioned on my face. As I flaunted my smile to Cohen Kirby, Sarah ran up to me, and I embraced her. "Huh?" Cohen looked at us, his mouth agape in surprise. Clearly unable to accept the reality of the situation, especially from someone he had looked down upon for so long. Jolie, who had been smirking beside Cohen until then, also seemed unable to hide her shock. Ignoring them, I turned to talk to Sarah. "Did you find a good spot for the shoot?" I asked. Sarah beamed and nodded. "I want to shoot in front of the flower bed you were so particular about." She pointed to the flower bed and grabbed the equipment next to me, dashing toward it. As I watched her spirited back, Jolie screamed in disbelief. "Is that Sarah from the popular video sharing site? Why is she calling you Mom?" Her words caught the attention of Cohen and Jolie's daughter, Yvonne. "That's really her. Wow, I'm meeting the real deal for the first time. Hey, ma'am, can I get her autograph?" "That's a great idea, Yvonne. You really are a genius." Their arrogant remarks were so typical of them as a family. I shrugged my shoulders in resignation and firmly refused. "Sorry, but no. Sarah posts videos because she enjoys filming and editing, not because she wants to be famous. Sure, she's become well known, but that's not her goal." "But why not?" "It doesn't cost anything. Besides, my daughter is a genius." A combination of a celebrity and a genius makes for great content. Annoyed yet curious, I asked Cohen what made his daughter a genius. "All I've seen is her brash and insensitive behavior." "Where's the genius in that?" "How dare you? Yvonne is a bright student preparing for a prestigious middle school. She's going to be someone big." I wished for a concrete example of Yvonne's genius. But Jolie's claims lacked specifics, making me sigh in frustration. Cohen, displeased with my reaction, began bragging more about Yvonne. Yvonne is so talented, she never sticks to anything for long. She masters everything too quickly and then gets bored. It's tough having a genius for a child. Hearing this far from impressive boast, I grew tired of the conversation. Without responding much to Cohen's bragging, I moved towards where Sarah was filming. I could hear Cohen and his family still talking behind me, but I ignored them and called out to Sarah. How's the shooting going, Sarah? Let's go to the cafe when you're done. Many people had gathered around Sarah, intrigued by her filming. Some recognized her as Sarah from the videos, creating a lively scene. I just need to shoot the ending, then I'm done. Just a little longer, she replied cheerfully, waving to the people around her before starting to film the final scene. Hey, Sarah! Let me be in the video with you. At an incredibly inopportune moment, Yvonne tried to interrupt the shoot. Noticing Yvonne's interruption, Sarah smiled at her and then resumed filming. After completing the shoot, Sarah was surrounded by onlookers. Many, like Yvonne, asked for her autograph, but Sarah politely declined each request. Instead, she engaged in friendly conversations with those who had approached her. Sarah continued her activities because she found joy in them, not because she sought fame. While she had indeed become famous, she never bragged about it. Autographs were not something she had even considered. So she chose to connect with her fans through conversation instead. When Yvonne had interrupted earlier, Sarah must have been annoyed. Sarah hid her feelings and gently refused. But I wondered if Yvonne understood that. When Sarah was about to leave, Yvonne, evidently not grasping Sarah's intentions, approached her. Great job on the shoot! Now, how about filming with me next time? Seeing Sarah's dumbfounded look, I couldn't stay out of it any longer. I'm sorry, but Sarah doesn't do collaborations. That smile earlier was just being polite to you for interrupting her shoot. What, is that just lip service? Learning such things at a young age, you're not raising her right. Jolie crossed her arms and looked down on Sarah. Sarah briefly stiffened but remained silent, not retorting. Feeling victorious, Jolie snorted and pressed on. Are you saying Yvonne isn't worthy of filming with you? You know, Yvonne is a genius who can do anything. It could actually boost your popularity. Maybe you should learn to read the room better. Sarah looked at me, unsure how to respond. I sighed and confronted Jolie. Enough already. You keep calling your daughter a genius, but I haven't seen a single concrete example. Being awarded isn't the only mark of greatness, but do you have any substantial achievements to brag about? The onlookers who had been listening to our conversation seemed to agree with me. Jolie looked bitter under the pressure of their words, but Yvonne didn't seem to care. Instead, she proudly started listing her accomplishments. I received a certificate at my piano recital for doing well in practice. And at my dance school, I got one for being able to dance a whole song. Plus, I've been awarded for perfect attendance at school. I've been recognized a lot, you know. Considering Sarah's age, Yvonne must be around the same age. Sarah was 12 years old, so probably Yvonne was also a middle schooler. Her claims felt somewhat trivial for her age. Unaware of the awkwardness, Yvonne looked at us expectantly for praise. I exchanged a helpless glance with Sarah, and we could only make troubled faces. The people around us reacted similarly, with some even bursting into laughter. Finally sensing the mood, Jolie awkwardly changed the topic. So, speaking of your activities, how much do you earn? I doubt it's enough to afford a condo here, right? Caught off guard by her desperate question, I decided to respond. Thankfully, Sarah's videos are quite popular on the video sharing site. She does earn money, but we're saving it for her future. We spend some on necessary equipment for filming. While this condominium is attractive, we don't need it as we already have our own home. Besides, I designed this place, so the success fee was substantial. My current husband runs a company, and combining our incomes, moving here wouldn't be a bad idea. I preemptively answered all the questions Jolie might have wanted to ask. As expected, she grimaced, glaring at Sarah and me. Cohen, having heard my explanation, seemed unable to argue back. However, Jolie, ever cunning, tried to butter me up despite her previously hostile attitude. "So, you built this place? Then you could get us a spot here, right? Our kids are about the same age. Can't you speak up for us out of pity?" I had no intention of agreeing to such a request. As I was about to firmly decline, Yvonne, misunderstanding the situation, chimed in with sparkling eyes. "We can live in this condo if we ask you? Hey, ma'am. We want to live here. Please help us out." I sighed, exasperated. And I decided to set them straight. "I'm sorry, but I can't guarantee you can live here. I might be able to refer you to the management company using my contacts, but there's a screening process. They'll check things like your job, income, potential for the future, and so on. I don't control the screening, so it's not certain you'll get in. It's up to you to make it happen." Jolie clicked her tongue upon hearing this, while Yvonne didn't seem to fully grasp the situation. Cohen then butted in, demanding the impossible. "Our daughter is asking, so make it happen. If you have the connections from building this place, get us through the screening." People around us started whispering at Cohen's unreasonable demands. I felt a headache coming on, wondering how to explain this obvious point. "I can't interfere with the screening process, that's beyond my control. If you want to live here, overcome the challenge on your own merits." At this, Cohen suddenly lost his temper. He began yanking flowers from a nearby bed and throwing them at me. I shielded Sarah from being hit, trying to calm Cohen down. But then, Jolie and Yvonne, following Cohen's lead, started doing the same. Jolie hurled insults and flowers at us, and Yvonne spewed verbal abuse at Sarah. I focused on protecting Sarah, but luckily, people around us intervened. Still, Cohen and his family continued their rampage, throwing anything they could find. Jolie picked up a stone and raised her arm. I grabbed her to stop her, but was shoved into the flower bed, hitting my head. The surrounding crowd became even more agitated and tried harder to stop them. However, the three individuals, who continued to behave violently in a fit of rage, were soon restrained. It's unclear who made the call, but the police arrived after hearing about the commotion. "Who called the cops?" Cohen shouted as the officers restrained him, but no one responded. Jolie, also being subdued by the police, tried to find out who had reported them. Yvonne stopped her tantrum but began crying as she watched her parents being detained. The area, which had been chaotic, suddenly quieted down when an officer's voice rang out. "Caught red-handed on suspicion of obstruction of justice." At these words, the commotion ceased in an instant. Cohen, who had caused the commotion, was apprehended by the police for his aggressive behavior. Holding my head and trying to comfort a tearful Sarah, I watched as he was taken away. At the same time, Jolie and Yvonne were also escorted to the police station. All three of them were put into a police car and driven away, disappearing from view. Despite the chaos they had caused, their swift removal by the police left me feeling somewhat relieved. But seeing Sarah on the verge of tears, yet still concerned for me, brought me back to reality. "Mom, you're hurt. Should we go to the hospital? Otherwise, you might." The commotion had overwhelmed Sarah, and she finally broke down crying. Hugging her, I apologized for involving her in such a situation. People around us expressed their concern. But I assured them I was fine, especially since Sarah was unharmed. When the sound of an ambulance siren approached, it seemed someone had called for medical assistance. The ambulance arrived, and alongside the police, I was taken in for treatment with Sarah by my side. As I boarded the ambulance, I took one last look at the damaged flower bed. The construction of the large condominium had inevitably created a sense of oppression. I had wanted to alleviate that by setting up a park within the grounds and placing a flower bed there. I hoped that the park would become a place of relaxation and conversation. The park where I first met my current husband had brought me much happiness. Taking a break from work, I had been admiring the flowers in the park when he approached me. From there, I started talking to my current husband, who worked near that park, and we became close. Our relationship grew from occasional lunchtime meetings to dinners, and eventually, we got married. Later, we were blessed with our daughter Sarah, despite it being a late pregnancy. That park, with its flower beds, had brought so much joy into my life. So, I wanted the project I was involved in to offer similar opportunities for happiness. The result of that effort was the flower bed. Seeing the flower bed destroyed was heartbreaking, a sharp contrast to the happiness it symbolized. At the hospital, I received treatment, needing a few stitches. But fortunately, they were almost unnoticeable. Sarah, relieved to see me all right, managed to smile as we left the hospital. While waiting for the bill, I was questioned by the police and decided to file a complaint. I also resolved to hire a lawyer and ensure Cohen and his family faced the consequences of their actions. Jolie was arrested for her involvement in the assault. According to what my lawyer told me, Yvonne was taken in by Jolie's parents after both her parents got into trouble with the police. I thought it was sad enough for her, but she was now facing re-education from her grandparents. Yvonne, taken in by her grandparents, apparently faced stern reprimands for her usual behavior. And she was subjected to strict discipline in an attempt to rehabilitate her. It seems that for Cohen and Jolie, and especially for Yvonne, challenging days lie ahead. As for me, my injury has been healing well since then. I recently had my stitches removed, and there's hardly any sign of the injury now. Sarah has become even more popular since that day and is busily engaging in her activities. It turns out that the police and ambulance were called by one of Sarah's followers. After the shooting was over, Sarah sensed a sense of disquiet and quickly switched to live streaming to distribute the video. Thanks to that, when a big fight broke out, it seems that one of her followers took action. We're truly grateful for this intervention that helped to resolve the situation. Subsequently, Sarah wanted to thank whoever helped, so she called for them to come forward in a video. However, no one did, so she posted a video expressing her gratitude instead. When I went to the park where the disturbance took place to shoot the video, I found that the flower beds had been cleaned up. I was relieved to see that the volunteers had apparently done a good job of putting them in order after the incident. Since then, things have been going surprisingly well. My involvement in the condominium project has raised my professional profile. Thanks to that, I've been promoted and now serve as the head of the planning department. Sarah's video views are also increasing rapidly, and she herself continues to post videos with a happy look. My current husband is very caring and was quite concerned about us. Although I've fully recovered and there's no disruption to my daily life, he still occasionally checks on how I'm doing. Having a kind-hearted husband and seeing Sarah grow up healthy. And I have no problem with that, because my business and my family are prospering. I look forward to spending more happy moments with my family of 3.